So last we left the party. Last I left you, chat, my co-GMs. We were talking about how the party was probably not actually going to kill Salamander. That's where we were at. So, how did that go? The party was on the island, hanging out. They camped right here, like 20 feet, 50 feet from Salamander. We're getting ready to go in on him. So they woke up the next morning. Eve was sleeping in kind of near Ramona, the priestess she had co-opted to help get over here that she had been playing bodyguard for. Had slept in this nice secluded corner. It doesn't look secluded now, but I promise it was secluded at the start of the session. Eve woke up and was going to try to just sneak off the side and down the hill. Her plan was to go burn a bunch of the boats and be like, and then basically be like, the island is under attack. You know this. It's the island is under attack by brass. You need to the plan was to get the soldiers down, checking out the burning boats, and to see if they were actually under attack, and to get the citizens out of here, get the citizens somewhere else evacuated. What actually happened is that Eve rolled a stealth check, critically failed, did not use a hero point, and broke off a bunch of bricks, made a bunch of noise. Ramona woke up, guard looked over, and Eve was like, "Oh, I was just trying to sit on this wall, and it crumbled. It's old stone. Bad time. So yeah. Anyway, I got things to do. I'll see you." And Eve just walked away and gave up on that plan. Eve just said, "Fuck the boats. I'm done with the boats. Done with the boat distraction. We're gonna do something else." She started to spread rumors around instead. So that was how Eve spent most of the day. I kind of forget how Solus spent the day. I think Solus, there was a group of prospective priests and followers and a bunch of other people who were waiting in line to talk to Salamander and hear his wisdom. And Solus was hanging out, kind of getting a feel for things there. And yeah, just kind of listening in. And there was kind of this pattern he was noticing where someone would go walk up, they would talk to Salamander, ask him a question, or explain a problem they were having, explain a situation in their life, or just say a prayer, what have you. And they would sit for a moment, and then their facial expression would change, and they would walk off. And very occasionally, he would hear Salamander actually speak in this low, booming, vibrating voice. But most of the time, it was kind of this nonverbal communication that was going on. So he was doing that. Meanwhile, Ludwig and Sonus were sneaking around, getting the lay of the land a little bit, specifically this temple shape, this pyramid shape, and they also investigated this door. Sonus had Ludwig follow him into this door. They were able to get in. They rolled a nice stealth check to get in there. Checked out what's underneath. I was like, I don't have a map for this, but it's very obvious under here that this is made of the same material as the chunk of the floating city that you guys found, the temple near Orlane, where Explicita was hanging out. More obvious under here than above, even though this is something you already knew. There are 3 exits, kind of southwest. No, wait. I can do directions: west, southwest, and south. Or the 3 main exits. And then there was a relief on the northern wall that you notice, because it looks like the relief where Eve placed this amulet that she got from the Emperor. This amulet of Denala's symbol. Placed it against the wall, opened up, turned into a little med bay, basically. A place where there were these beds that would you would lay down and they would heal you a bunch in the equivalent of a, it's a short rest, full heal, basically. They spend an hour in there, rest, and they would get healed to full, something like that. I don't remember the exact mechanics of it. So there was another door like that with a different relief. That was the symbol of Arcanus, I think, or Scala. Shit. I will refer to my player notes later. I think it was Scala, actually. And yeah, the other doors, other than that one, they didn't have a way to open that, so they gave up on that. The other doors were like sealed off. There was plaster kind of around the doors, sealing them shut. And unlike the doors in Explicatus Temple, they looked like original construction. They hadn't they weren't, yeah, they were like the original stone doors. Other than that, there was also a dais with a bunch of treasure, and they did nothing with that the first time. So those two left, regrouped with the group. Everyone kind of grouped back up down here. And then they, talked with each other about what they had found, what they had scouted out here. And Ludwig and Sonus told Eve about the treasure, and Eve was immediately like, I'm gonna get down on that. You show me where that is. You show me this treasure underground place. I think it was mostly they mentioned the relief door. And that caught Eve's attention big time. So that was kind of the thing that prompted her to be like, show me. So they tried to go back over here, Ludwig and Sonus and Eve in this big group. Everyone rolled great stealth checks except Sonus. Sonus was the last one in line, so I was just like, this goblin, notices you. Oh, I forgot. Yeah. When they first came back out, a goblin, noticed them come out. So they rolled a bad stealth check, and he was like, hey, get away from that door. Get away. Stop that. You're not allowed down there. And this time coming back, Sonus was caught by this same goblin. It was keeping kind of more of a lookout. The other two got to this wall, and Sonus got caught. He was like, I told you you're not allowed over there. Just come over here. And they had a little back and forth, and Sonus was like, oh, I'm very curious about this ritual you're doing up here. It's you summoned an elemental last night. What's going on? Teach me about this. And kind of diverted his attention very, very nicely. So that was good. And then the other two got downstairs. So Eve and Ludwig checked out this door, basically discovered that Eve's amulet would not open it. They saw that it was a different marker than the other one that they opened. And that, they didn't have the tools necessary, so they abandoned that pretty quickly. And then the other thing I forgot is that Sonus was going to try to bust open the door, which would have been kind of funny. I would have liked seeing that get figured out. But yeah, they checked out the treasure, and Ludwig was like, all right, there's treasure over here, but don't touch it. Don't do it. Don't, leave it as it is, because we're going to try to convince Salamander that Eden is not his enemy. We're gonna try to do that first. And if you fuck with his treasure, probably that's not gonna result in a success. And Eve was like, I don't think you guys are gonna succeed anyway. Open the bag of holding and just shovel stuff in. So they got, come on, camera, keep focused here. I might have put my hand too close. I don't know. Weird. So they shoveled in a bunch of treasure. Eve got a staff with a kind of a burnt end on it. You might remember that we put a staff of fire in the loot list. So that's what Eve got. A couple of scrolls that Eve recognized as the same I called them flare style fireballs. So they're fireballs that have, I think, twice the radius or something like that. Let's see, it was 20. No. 3 times. 3 times the radius. So 3 times the size, but they do, instead of doing 66 damage, they just do 6 damage flat. So minimized damage, but supersized. So flare style fireballs for sending signals. So found 3 more of those scrolls for 4 total. And Eve was like, this will be great. I have a perfect plan for these. And we'll get to that shortly. Let's see what else. So yeah, then they all regrouped back outside. Again, talked about their plan. And then Eve, yeah, they went back and forth a lot on whether they were gonna fight Salamander or convince him. And Eve was like, you can talk, but if it doesn't seem like he's taking the bait, if he doesn't seem like you're convincing him, I'm just gonna stab him. We're just gonna resort to plan A. So. And I guess that was the other thing. They were trying to figure out what Salamander was about, why he was angry at Eden, and it kind of went back to this whole want to burn down the Tower of the Old Ways. There's a couple of pieces. There's what he tells his followers, which maybe he kind of believes, which is burning down the old ways, getting rid of, like, this is the only town that was spared the wrath of the gods, and it needs to no longer survive for us to move on from that event, from the old gods. And, like, with this side piece of the secret to awakening the old gods might lie within Eden. I guess this wasn't something that the followers know. This is something that Salamander directly told the players that they didn't really grab. They didn't pick it up too much. So, Nathan, if you watch this in a couple of months, once you guys are back in Eden and you're able to go through these videos, sorry, not to put too fine a point on this. So in retrospect, whatever. That's fine is what I'm saying. You don't need to retroactively feel bad that you missed that. It's not actually that big of a deal. It's more of a lore thing than an oh shit, that's the next front thing, you know. For now. Anyway, so there was that. And then there's like the actual Salamander motivation, like the personal motivation to Salamander as a being. And that is that Salamander feels feels a lot of anger towards his creator, which was the Emperor, who is now dead, and kind of wants to burn down everything that Adam built. So there is that. There's that as well. So, yeah. So with that information, yeah, the party's primary plan now is to convince Salamander that, like, Eden is not an enemy and try to, like, focus his attention elsewhere, basically. So that's what the party is going with the intention of doing, everyone except Eve, who doesn't really participate in that part, which kind of was detrimental to that, detrimental to that endeavor, as we'll see shortly. So, Eve wandered off, was like, all right, I'll be right back. Wandered off back over here, which was now very secluded. Fired off one of the flare-style fireballs over here. And it, like, popped off, and everyone looked over. And, like, as a result of the rumors that Eve spent the morning sowing, this caused perhaps more panic than it otherwise might have. Everyone kind of reacted, and, like, Salamander even said something of, like, the enemy comes for us. In short, get all of the citizens inside and everyone who is willing to fight to arms. To arms. And we'll defend our home. So there was that, and then Eve shot off another flare, kind of in a slightly different direction. Just a secondary thing to reinforce, like, trouble coming. And then party grouped up. Citizens kind of went inside. You'll see all these people in the GM layer. I was like, I might need these later, so I'm not going to delete all of the followers. We're just going to put them on the GM layer. We're going to hide them. And then I accidentally grabbed them a million times when I was trying to get other things, as you do. And then yeah. So they did that. Party regrouped. They went and they, like, spoke to Salamander as everyone kind of cleared out. They tried to convince Ramona, the priestess, to, like, go inside with everyone else, and Ramona was like, nah. I'm newly anointed. I need to like, support. I will defend our home, basically. Like, I'm going to defend Salamander and everyone here. I will help keep our soldiers fighting. And that was just the deal with Ramona, the priest friend, and the old priest that brought them all over. Was like, all right, very well. I will handle the civilians inside if you insist on being out here where it's worse. And this didn't, ideally, the party wanted, like, all of the soldiers to leave too? When are we gonna get raised to come in and throw a nade? Kill the squad? It was, like, not that far off from... We'll talk about it shortly. But they had, when they eventually got to the fight, there were some priests hanging out ready to, like, throw some fire, man. Some fire and some bombs. So yeah, they came up, they tried to talk to Salamander. And it started out okay. I wish I remembered exactly what they said. I should have gone and reviewed the VOD before starting this, to be honest. But they started convinced, like, they Solus caught his attention. A, with a good role, and B, with a good argument of, like, I think what it was like they tried to convince him that Eden was not his enemy. They were like, you want, the council alive review? I think it would take me too long to find the spot, unfortunately. That wouldn't be too bad. If I were more prepared, I would have it like lined up so we could just play that 5 minutes. But I'm not that prepared. So maybe next time I'll like write notes about just like specific clips I want to play. Because that is an advantage of just having it recorded, is that we can go like I can pull up things. I don't have to recreate them. But like Eden's not your enemy. There's a lot of people there who like mean you no harm. They don't care even that you exist. They're just afraid of you because you pushed up and caused a bunch of trouble. Oh man, thank you. Thank you for that, Michael. I appreciate it for 2 months. Very generous. I will get you back soon. If I'm not already, someone might have already like gifted me a sub. Anyway, moving on. You say no, but it's all right. Thank you for your generosity. We'll leave it there. I know. I understand. I know that's not why you're subbing. Also, there's a mystery that I have not on my sub side of things. I think someone snuck in a tier 2 sub somewhere. Because currently I have I have a number of subscribers and plus 1 number of sub points. So I think someone snuck in a tier 2 and I'm not sure who did that. I'm not sure. So not that I want to creep on people's sub tiers. It's fine. I'm surprised. 1, that it happened, because who subscribes at other tiers? 2, I'm surprised that I missed it. Anyway, so yeah, they gave that argument, and Salamander was like, no, the council has to burn, basically, something along those lines. And the party was like, that's fine, we don't care about the council. And Salamander, so he like flared up. You remember this? These cones, right? These cones of fire. He flared these up and was like, I'm done with this conversation. And then Solus said that, and the flares went down. The like fire spaces went back down. And he was like, okay, that's interesting. So like they had an opening there. Unfortunately, the next person's turn was Eve, and Eve was just determined not to talk it out with Salamander. So Eve was like, he's not interested. Stab. Went at him with a dagger slash and a rapier stab. So that obviously was not an argument in their favor. He flared back up, took a bunch of damage, by the way. Most of this, let's zoom back in. Most of this is Eve's damage here. I can't drag that. Just relax, roll 20, please. So Eve did like 38 damage. We're sitting at not quite, let's see. We almost got down to 2/3 health, right? Coincidentally, also almost down to, what's 1/4 of 90, 45? Yeah, almost down to 3/4. I can math. So that's not bad, right? Like they were doing significant damage. I was like, oh wow, they might actually like do this anyway. But the other thing is, there's a whole lot of soldiers still out here. The party didn't actually successfully deal with the soldiers, so like they were on the ready. And while they've been making arguments, the soldiers were like turning around. I was like just moving the tokens. I was sliding them up. I was turning them towards the players. And the players didn't like super notice. Sorry, spit. Players didn't super notice this until they all took a shot at Eve. Like a couple readied arrows came in and they like fired, readied actions, and Eve took a bit of damage. I wonder if I can find it. GM rolls. These first ones, like 1 damage here. I don't know. It's fine. Eve took a bit of damage. Point being, Eve was not at full health. just from like arrows coming in. I had them at the end of the round roll like a reflex save to some fireballs. Like basically after Eve stabbed him, they all gave up on trying to argue, which is like that's a reasonable response. So they all kind of like tried to attack this guy or like adjacent soldiers. Soldiers started running in. He popped his first ability at the end of the round, and like I rolled a single elemental coming out of the portal. So they dealt with that. Oh wow, Tatty Cakes, thank you for the raid. Welcome, guys. Hello. How's it going? I was able to hang out until the end of the session, but how was the post game chat? How'd it go? We're just doing a recap of my last session right now. So I'm gonna keep rolling with that a little faster than I might otherwise, but welcome everyone. Thank you for coming and hanging out. And yeah, we're like most of the way through the recap, although there's a lot of stuff that happened at the end of the session that we'll have to like hit one after the other. But so yeah, they got to the end of the first round and it looked okay. Salamander had taken a decent chunk of damage from Eve and Ludwig's ice bomb. Salamander has a slight weakness to cold damage. So took a little extra from that, and got to, like I said, almost down to 2/3. And then something, and then Salamander got a melee attack off. Eve was right up in here, just right up next to Salamander, and like kind of the weird thing here is that Salamander's scariest thing is definitely his serrated bite. Just his wild bite attack. It's like at a plus, it's right here, right? So he's +4 levels from them. So he just has more stat. He just has more beef to him, more number. So his bite is at a +22. Their ACs are at like 22, right? So the question is not whether he will hit. The question is whether he will critically miss or critically hit, really. Because like almost half of the results are a crit for a lot of the party members, so that was rough. This is what happens when you have again to reiterate some of the stuff from like recent prep. When you have infinite time to prepare against this like demigod guy, and then you give yourselves a time limit and don't prepare, it's gonna be a little rough. So Eve got bit. Eve got crit for about 62 damage or 60 damage, somewhere in there. It was either a 31 or a 30. And Eve had, because she took shots from the arrows, Eve had like 55 or 58 health, somewhere in there. Just barely under that. So Eve was one shot. Eve went down first round. And what happened immediately after that? Ludwig and Sonus turned invisible and ran off the side of the temple. They just pieced out. And Solus walked in front and just like got on his knees and threw his weapon down and said, I surrender. Just let me, like, let's get my friend stabilized, make sure they're okay, like, keep my friend alive, and I will work for you. Like, I have a lot of knowledge of Eden, I will work for you, just save my friend. So they gave up the ghost on the fight real fast after that. Yeah, that's where the combat basically ended, was just after Eve got crit. And from there, it was basically cleaning things up. So like Sonus and Ludwig escaped. They rolled a stealth check. They had invisibility potions, like huge advantage on the stealth. So they just went somewhere else. They hid, patched themselves up, and took a moment to regroup. Eve got dragged off somewhere else. Solus doesn't know where. And the rest of the session was basically we like went to Eve in her cage, and she was kind of, we're figuring out where Eve was, which was just in a cage down by like kind of the military buildings where Solus originally talked to the generals the previous session. And there was an NPC there, Zima, who works for the brass scales. I can remember our faction names. Zima, who's an NPC who worked for the brass scales, but who the party also saved. Brass Scales being like a rival mercenary band, but also an NPC that the party saved in like the second or third session. So Zima kind of owed them one, and they've like ran into her a couple of times as like a known friendly NPC. Um, so she came up, she like let Eve out and was like, that was rough, huh? And Eve was like, so yeah, that was pretty bad. I guess we're even now. And Zima kind of like, yeah, sure. Let's like get you out of here. Um, so like Eve's gonna get some help, kind of escaping. We saw Zima like the previous session. Solus caught sight of her, so like they kind of knew that Zima was around. I don't think they realized that Zima was like tailing them specifically, keeping tabs on the party, more than like scouting out Salamander's situation. It was more like let's see if Eve and Co can actually like succeed here and like how they handle this, how well it goes. Not well, as it turns out. So there was that. Then we followed Sonus and Ludwig to like see what they did. They basically said, yeah, we're gonna just regroup, and then later on, after things cool down a little bit, we're gonna go try to find Eve, and they did so successfully. Saw that Eve's cage was already open and that she was just like leaving, so that was interesting. That's where we left them, and then we zoomed into kind of the west side of the island, where the allies that they could have spent time recruiting. So like they had these allies from their adventures in Orlane. Not full allies, just potential allies. And the plan was to go talk to them, get them on their side, and get their help fighting Salamander. And instead, they like just took off straight for the island because they set like a time limit for themselves by being like basically they put a target on Salamander's head. They did a whole. They convinced the council that whoever brings back Salamander's head gets to be the next emperor, because there's currently no one on the throne. So that obviously means Salamander is a target for everyone. They're like, all right, great. Now we need to get there, take out Salamander before everyone else. So they left without recruiting those allies. On the way to Salamander, they met, by the grace of random tables, some gnolls, who happened to be the allies of the Harpies. Like, the Harpies' whole thing is that they're like working with the gnolls to kind of push back on Salamander's whole control of like this northeast area of the world map. And just the timing happened to be that the time it took the party to get up to the island was a day earlier than the timing for the gnolls to like travel up this way, talk to the Harpies, and for the Harpies, like a little Harpy kill squad, to fly out to the island. I've got like the days listed here, and I've been just, I figured it out. Like gnolls on the January 7th, the gnolls will arrive at the Guardian Harpy's roost, and at January 10th, they arrive at the island. They got to the island the day of January 10th. The Harpies were arriving at night. So, camera switches to the west side of the island. We see, like, a little couple of goblin scouts on top of this little scout tower. This little, like, warning pyre that they can light at a moment's notice. Then we see, like, a camera looking out at the lake. One goblin, like, walks up on the corner, holding up a little torch, looking out at the lake. Harpy comes down. See big Harpy feet grab the goblin, lift him off, gives out a little goblin scream, and then he's like dropped into the lake. And another one comes around the corner and like looks. He's like, "What happened? Where'd you go?" And like, then we see larger armored Harpy feet just like smash down on that goblin and just crush him. And then we see like this little reinforcement force of Harpies. Like, I don't remember if I described it as 5 to 8, but the exact number doesn't matter. Little force of Harpies coming in and like landing on this scout tower and then like taking to the woods. And then they're like, "So, where do you think our friends are?" And the other responding like, "I don't know, but I say come morning we just make ourselves easy to find. Let's cause a ruckus." So that's where we ended the session, with like this reinforcement party arriving, just making it nice and obvious for the players that like, yeah, you struck out this time, but like, you have prepared for round 2. It just so happens that you get another chance with some friends if you want it. Like, the end has not necessarily arrived. So that's where we left it. And the party was like pretty hyped from that. They were like, all right, cool. There was like definitely a down moment. after the combat was abandoned, where they were like, "Oh, that was rough. What do we do now?" And then there was that, and everyone was excited for that when that scene came about, and we finished up for the night. So that was satisfying. That was nice. Good payoff for a lot of like nerves I'd had. I was very concerned that like I was disappointing my players or that I was like being too harsh on them, especially Eve. I was like, I feel like I was drawing things out too much, or I felt like I was drawing things out too much, and like I was being too punishing, and that like the players were just going to be annoyed that nothing worked out like they wanted it to. But you know, it in this instance, it seemed to have worked out really well. They were really excited for the way things turned out. They were like, they completely forgot about the harpies. And yeah, I think they liked the little wrinkles in there with Zima and the harpies. So that was great. I'm really excited for the next session. As for what we're preparing tonight, there's not actually a whole lot because we still have the boss. The boss stats are still relevant. The boss loot is still relevant. The map is still relevant. Like we could try to figure out the fallout of the next session, but like I think that's hard when it could go a lot of different directions. Like there's still this little impulse on Ludwig's end, and maybe even Eve's end, now that she kind of got her like her stomach bitten out, to like try to work it out with Salamander, try to like talk to him. So we'll see. I don't know. We'll see what happens. The only thing we really have to do is maybe stat out Harpy friends and like figure out what they're about, especially the Guardian Harpy, the kind of like demigod one, the foil to Salamander up here. Yeah, what I allies, current allies of convenience at the very least. So yeah, there's some stuff to talk about there. I might want their primary role is probably going to be just deal with the rest of the temple and like make it so these other soldiers aren't a problem, and we'll talk about how that works in a minute. But we might also have like some defensive help from the main harpy, the Guardian Harpy. That is her domain after all. So we'll talk about that in a minute. I'll be right back. I'm just gonna take a quick break, stretch my legs, probably reload on water, and we'll get into it. Yeah. So talk to you guys in a moment. Oh no, my notepad was covering the new scene location. Told you it would happen. I knew it.